Hi, this is Big Top Books. I'm very happy that you are here. Today I will be talking about my favorite romance books. I have about 20 here to go over. I've divided it up into categories, so we'll start off with some untraditional ones. There's only a couple there. And we will segue into fantasy, and then we're going to go into YA, and then we'll finish off with my favorite adult romances. With Valentine's coming up shortly, I hope I'm able to give you at least one recommendation, maybe a book you've never heard of or a book you have heard about, but maybe now's the time that you finally get around to reading it. So let's get started. So just to prove to you I at least have a little bit of taste, I have decided to make this video in large part because of the book I'm currently reading now. Like any sane person during the season of love, I decided I'd read some Emily Henry. There's no one that quite does it like Emily Henry. For anybody that reads romance, there's at least one Emily Henry book that you're gonna love. It's just scientific fact at this point. What I find so impressive about Emily Henry books is that even if I don't fully connect with the love story going on or the personal growth the characters are having to go through, I can see just how marvelous the writing is and how just superior. Like, she is the model. This is the model romance book. This is what everyone is trying to do. Everyone's trying to catch Emily Henry. And this one that I'm reading now, Funny Story, I think it's the one for me. I thought it was Happy Place after I read that, because I was just in awe at how brilliant, not just the relationships, but all the side characters in that book, and just the drama of it all. Like, there are a lot of characters in it that I didn't necessarily like, but I liked how I disliked them. Like, I could get so annoyed at them, but then I found it fascinating. But this one I'm connecting to on a little bit different level, mainly because one of my great loves in life is the show New Girl. And this feels just like I'm reading it, not only because the love interest in this one reminds me a lot of Nick Miller, although they have very big differences. I would still say, not big differences, but they're different enough where I'm like, it's not the same character, but just the writing style of it, it feels like the scenes, as I've read it, I've like changed the way I'm reading it, where it just feels more and more like sitcom-y, if that's a word, over the top, things that are happening, but it all makes sense at the same time. And I just find myself laughing. It really is a funny story. She was not lying with that title. And yeah, I'm just so excited to see how it ends up. I knew from the first few pages that Miles and Daphne are a couple I'm rooting for. They had me kicking my feet, and I was telling my feet to stop, and they just wouldn't. And yeah, it's the closest I felt to watching New Girl in book form, and that in itself is just an accomplishment for me. All right, so now let's start with the two non-traditional love stories. I've already talked about this one in my very first video, but I just had to include it because there is just a special connection, I feel, between the main character and his late wife. And this book is A Man Called Ove, Fredrik Backman once again. He just seems to follow me around. So A Man Called Ove is about this really grumpy guy who you just kind of see how he is so annoyed by humanity and the millennials and everyone that's younger than him, and even the people his same age. There's nobody he really likes. But then these neighbors come in and they kind of change his life. They make him think in different ways, and confront some of the things he's dealing with, which the reason this book's in this video, like the marriage that he had and like the flashbacks that he goes through. There's some, I would look up the trigger warnings for this book, but man, and I like watching the movie as well, A Man Called Otto. I felt it even more then. I didn't even know what this book was about. I loved Fredrik Backman at the time, before watching the movie, but I didn't know what this was really about. And then watched the movie, and oh my god, I was sobbing, but great healing tears, it felt like, to really see this man and his experience with love, his deep, great love that he had. And it warms my heart, this book, for that and the way he moves on from it. The second non-traditional romance book I wanted to talk about today is called Out of Love by Hazel Hayes. So if you like a good sad romance, like you want to watch like The Notebook, for instance, or even Forrest Gump in a way, I think this one is for you. So it starts at the end. Out of Love begins at the end. And you see at the very front the end of a relationship, and then it goes back in time to see how it got to this position. And I think this one's more for the pessimistic lovers. I love the writing in this. I found myself crying multiple times throughout it, just knowing how the relationship ends, and seeing what could have been because of some of the choices our main character makes as she's going through the book, and how her life could have gone a different way instead, but because she's stuck with the relationship she thought she wanted, it didn't go that way. And it makes you think really hard about those decisions you make in life. And I really love this book. I remember after I finished it, it's like that might have been one of the best books I've ever read. It's actually one I started annotating. I have a signed copy, Keep Falling, Hazel. But I kind of went through, I don't really do this much with books, like highlight, but I went through and I didn't get all the way through, but I highlighted quite a bit. Okay, next up we have fantasy books that I think have a brilliant romance within them, maybe even multiple brilliant romances that really just tugged at my heartstrings and made the reading experience even better. And so the first one is the first series I think that really got me into reading and made me who I am. I started writing my own stories with my own Greek demigod characters, and of course, Greek demigod, it's Percy Jackson. So this is my OG copy, maybe the oldest book I own. And then this is the original cover design they did, and I can't believe I found this, and I just love it so much. Just take a look for a second. It's just insane. But I'll show this one while I talk about it. Don't have too much I want to say, except just I love Percy and Annabeth. The way they grow. They're 12 years old when they start, so there's not much, flying off the page as far as romance goes in these first books, because they're children. But as you get deeper into the series, it will change your life, and it will become an entire personality. So if you haven't read The Lightning Thief, if you're an adult, I don't care how old you are, you need to read Percy Jackson. It's a requirement I have for you. And yeah, Percy and Annabeth for life. Also, you should read the follow-up series, Heroes of Olympus. I think that's where their relationship, Percy and Annabeth, really shines, because it gets a little more, it gets a lot more serious. Like the stakes just keep growing. So if you like that, I think you'll really love The Lightning Thief. Like the way it progresses, from being pretty lighthearted from the this book. And it just gets darker and darker, but their light always stays there, which is what I really adore about this series. Like it never becomes too much, and you always root for these such endearing characters. If you want tension, if you want sacrifice, if you want literally going into the trenches for the one you love, Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. Wow, this isn't my typical love story that I am drawn to. I like a fluffier tone. This one is not that. This one, we have God interfering in the world and making it just horrendous for these people, for this world. But despite that, we have Iris and Roman fighting for their love. And I loved it. I remember I went through these. I love a duology because I'm like, oh, because 3 can feel daunting. But I read the first one. I was like, okay, I can do more of this. So I read the duology, Ruthless Vows, and wow, it was just fantastic. Book Talk was right on this one. I'm so happy I got the chance to read these. I sprayed the edges on these, and I was really happy. They look so nice together, I think. And I think I did a pretty good job with matching the letters on that as well. But yeah, I was so pleasantly surprised with Divine Rivals, and it's one I may go back to when I'm wanting that type of all or nothing love. It's been said that this is the greatest heist story of our time. Well, it's at least the greatest YA heist story of all time. No, it's the greatest. It's the greatest of all time. You already know what it is. It's Six of Crows. And Crooked Kingdom, the second book in the series. The greatest line you will ever read about romance and what it is comes in this book. It's about bottling up something. So you can listen to it for the rest of your life. Kaz and Inej, I've never felt more tension and ecstasy by the touch of a hand, even more than in watching Pride and Prejudice 2005. It's just masterclass. The heist portions. We also have Matthias and Nina. They have a great, I love the arc of their characters, especially with Matthias. Oh yeah, brace yourselves for that. And then of course we have Jesper and Wylan. I love Jesper. He's just so cool, and Wylan's just such a sweet boy. But I love all these characters, and I love how we get 3 romances in one. It's fantastic. There's a reason so many people love this book. It's at least top 5 YA of all time. I'm gonna say it. It's fantastic. You have to read it. Even if you aren't in a romance mood, if you're just wanting some good fantasy, here you go. But then you're gonna get the romance, and you're gonna want it because Leigh Bardugo is writing it. Let's see how those books fare. All right, we have 2 more coming. We have first, this one's probably the most different besides, the first non-traditional, but we have 11/22/63. Now, this is a big boy, and it's Stephen King, so if you're not too much into thrillers, I still think you might like this one. It's more historical fiction. It's like sci-fi historical fiction where our main character travels back in time to 11/22/63. That's the date he's trying to get to because that's when JFK was assassinated in Dallas. The second half of this book, the romance, he just drops in a romance that you're not expecting. You're already in the story, but then you get Sadie, and oh my god, it is so beautiful. I didn't know Stephen King had it in him to write such a beautiful, beautiful romance, and that to the last line, I'll never forget how this book ends. Oh my god, it's wonderful. If you're looking for a Stephen King that's not horror, if you're looking, it's more on the fiction side. If you're more historical fiction, like I said, this one is wonderful. You'll learn a lot from it. And yeah, I think I've read, I think 7 or 8 Stephen King novels. This one is second. It's my favorite, but it's very close. Now this last one with my fantasy romance recommendations might throw you through a loop for a second, but just take your time. I understand the importance in Sam and Frodo's relationship for all of masculinity, I'll say it. Boys and men should be able to express their feelings to one another and cry and hug each other, and just be there for each other as friends. But at the same time,
I think Sam and Frodo should have kissed.
oh no, it's starting to crumple like Mountain Doom. Okay, this next one it makes me smile just to look at it. It's Heartstopper. There's 5 of these. Boom. Boom. And what's so cool is I got all signed copies of them. I'll just show you the 5th one. You're gonna have to trust me on the other ones, but and it's in pink. Isn't that so cool? All right, so Heartstopper is a love story about Nick and Charlie. It's a graphic novel. It's the only graphic novel I own here. I don't have many graphic novels. This is actually the only graphic novel I've read. So if you have any suggestions of graphic novels I might like, if I like Heartstopper, please post them in the comments. I'm happy to give them a shot. Yeah, it's about Nick and Charlie, and it goes through their experiences where Charlie's out, but he's been shamed and he's gone through a lot of stuff for being out as gay. And then Nick is in the closet, but he's trying to navigate his feelings for Charlie, and it's just, it's so heartwarming, and all the other relationships in the book make me just so happy. I think the show did an even better job of including those characters. Nick and Charlie, they feel just real to me, and it's so important that these books exist, and I love them with all of my heart. Oh, also, the mental health rep in this is 10 out of 10, in my opinion. I know everyone has different experiences with it, but especially when you get it, for me in the show, I sob, especially in the later seasons, but it's we're putting these at the bottom. We're not gonna be crazy. I credit this next YA romance for being the first true romance book I ever read, and by a really popular author in the YA space, but this is definitely her least popular book, and I think that's just a damn shame. We have Instructions for Dancing. Now in this, our main character, there's a magical element to it. So where if she sees 2 people kissing, she can see the trajectory of that relationship from beginning to end. So this makes her pessimistic about love, and she's never had any feelings for anyone, and has never let herself get in that position because of all these visions she's having. But then she goes to this dance studio, and she ends up falling for this boy there. His name's X. She's Evie, but she's like hesitant about it because of this magical element she has. And I found it so interesting, like one of the most interesting just books in general that I've ever read. It's not, I would say, as joyful as some of the other romance books I've read, but I wholly, fully have 100% support behind this book, and I want more people to read it so I can talk about it with more people. Oh, also the dancing in here, I love it. It's just so romantic in the book, and I really love the banter between these 2. It's so good. It's like sunshine, cloudy, that trope. I think that's there. Under and Santi Were Here is my next recommendation. This is one of the most, I don't want to use beautifully tragic, but that's a beautiful way to describe this book, or the best way to describe this book. And Yeah, so Under and Santi right here takes place in San Antonio, Texas, one of my favorite places on earth. And the writing is just exquisite. You can just feel the heat in it with the weather and the romance. And yeah, it's the first, I think it's one of the first times I've read a non-binary character. Under, it goes, their pronouns are they, them, and then Santi. So basically, Under is a muralist, and they're about to go to college for that, but they're starting to feel sad about leaving the place they've always been. And they work at a restaurant, and Santi goes there and is a waiter, and Under is just head over heels for Santi. I will say this book is quite heavy though, with one big part of it where Under and Santi have to deal with the fear of ICE agents coming to get Santi and his family, and just what they have to do to prepare for that. It's so heartbreaking, and it adds on to the feeling like Under has for their home, but how can they be so how can they keep those same sentiments about their home when they have to deal with such a tragic thing? It's one of the best YA books I've ever read, easily. Zyla and Kai. I already talked about Zyla and Kai, but I love this book by Kristina Forrest. It's just so cute. So I didn't talk about the plot in the last book, so we'll talk a little bit about that. So Zyla and Kai are on a field trip. And in the very beginning, they go missing. That's kind of how the whole story starts. They go missing, and then we're trying to figure, and they're supposed to be broken up at this point. So we're trying to figure out why that's the case. So you go through the whole story, and it goes through like the entire year, basically, of when they got together to this point. And it's very cute with all the different holidays they experience through it, all the different dates. So it's a book that's great for any time of year. And then Zyla is very, like, she's kind of against love, and because of her experiences with it, like growing up, seeing it from her parents. And then Kai is he's kind of a player. He dates a lot of girls, and that's kind of how their relationship starts. It's him breaking up with one girl, and then Zyla trying to figure him out and like where he stands with that relationship. But I read this book twice. It's I think it's over 500 pages, but it's so worth it. I think she's a heavily underrated author, Kristina Forrest, and this is a heavily underrated book. I think people know about this one the least, and I think it's my favorite of hers. So please give it a shot. If you love the carnival setting too, I just felt so like kind of nostalgic for that, being someone who grew up and kind of in those areas in the circus, but being around a lot of carnivals as well. Yeah, Zyla and Kai, so good. Now it's time to get country. We have A Little Bit Country by Brian Kennedy. If you have ever wanted to explore fictional Dollywood, read about that. That takes place here. It's wonderful. It's about a chef and a musician, and kind of their love story. Like, the musician goes here to try to make a name for himself, and then the other love interest, or the love interest's boy who cooks there. And I guess I really like. I think Under and Santi right here was also one that dealt with a restaurant and a cook. So I guess that's something I like in my romances. But I had so much fun. I expected this to be kind of just funnier and a lot more fluff than it was, but it had some real impactful moments. Especially, I remember about like the musician. Let me get his name, Emery. But kind of with the state of country, him being a gay kid, like how hard it is to get into that industry, and I really, it was interesting to read about that. It just made me so happy. I thought, I don't know, I just didn't expect it to make such an impact on me. My final recommendation for a YA romance book would be what I consider maybe one of the best starting places for romance for teenagers. And it's by Rachel Lynn Solomon, and that is Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. So the main characters in here, they are salutatorian and valedictorian, and they've always been competing their whole high school career. And then it's the final day, it's graduation day, and they're trying to see who's going to be salutatorian, who's going to be valedictorian. But then, because they start to realize their feelings for one another, like they've had this competition and they're supposed to be enemies, but actually are they, oh no, are they more, do they have feelings for each other that they didn't actually realize? It's very cute. It takes place in Seattle. I love the setting of it. And I love, like, there's a lot of parts where it uses, like, different formatting, which I always love in a book, like those. This is super comfortable. One second. To fix a problem, just put it back exactly how it was before, and it should be fine, right? I love this one, and I actually, at the end of this book, there's a letter that's written. I wrote a little letter myself. It inspired me so much. For my own relationship, I had so many feelings going on with this book that transpired in my own life, and it was really cool. It's also the author's signed right there next to it. All right, to start the adult romances, we have yet another cooking show romance. I'm not even that big of a cook. I don't understand, but anyway, we have Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. This is the first romance that I really, really loved. So it's about London and Dahlia. So it takes place on a cooking show, and London is the first openly non-binary person to come on the show. They announce their pronouns. So that causes a lot of mayhem in London's mind. And then there's Dahlia, who's trying to make a name for herself. She's just, she's recently divorced, and so she's coming on the show hoping to make, a new life for herself. But in the first episode, she's really clumsy. I think she falls. It's anytime I see, it's kind of like Kevin from The Office with his chili bowl. Like it shatters my heart. But it's just so adorable. I love the way they come together. It feels so organic. It felt like a real love story, despite the insane stuff going on with the cooking show. And there's some really real moments too with London, with their identity. It was one of the sexiest books I've ever read. The spice was really good in this one. You can't talk about romance books and not mention Ali Hazelwood. And her best book, I've only read 2 of them, but it is Love Theoretically. The other one I read was The Love Hypothesis. I think they're similar in a lot of ways, but Love Theoretically, I think the writing really ramped up with Ali Hazelwood, and the narrator is just so funny and so smart, and I loved just reading her brain, and it's such a funny concept. With her being a fake dater, and the romantic interest she has, his name's Jack, is the brother of the person she's fake dating to get money, because she's an adjunct professor who doesn't make much money, so she needs a side hustle. Jack ends up being like her sworn career enemy, because he ended up getting her mentor fired. So there's a lot of things in the mix here, but their romance ends up being really good, and there's a mid-book twist that really got me. So yeah, I have loved this one. If you're gonna read Ali Hazelwood, The Love Hypothesis is a great book, or at least good. Love Theoretically, great, one of the best out there. All right, next up we have The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrun. This one's so fun. So it's like The Bachelor, but in a rom-com, and I really loved it. One of the books I'm going to talk about is actually in the blurb, which is really cool. So this one deals a lot with demisexuality, which if you're not aware of what that is, it's you're basically not able to feel physical attraction until you feel romantic attraction. And one of the characters in here is demisexual. And I love all the movie set or the show set parts. I love when the writing, like you see multimedia like within the book, and that was really fun to read those parts. And yeah, they were a really cute couple. So like I just said, the author that blurbed this book, Hannah Orenstein, is my next book. So Head Over Heels. So I read this when the Olympics were going on or about to go on. I can't remember exactly. And it's perfect because the main character is a former gymnast, but when she was at the trials to be going into the Olympics, she got injured and wasn't able to do it. And it's kind of damaged her self-esteem for her adult life. But then she gets invited to help train a girl that's about to be competing for, or going into the trials for the Olympics. And the love interest is the person who owns the gym. And it's really cool. It's like kind of Hallmark-esque, where you have the city girl coming back to her small town. And it's cozy thinking of that. And I loved all the stuff about the Olympics and her training as a gymnast. As someone, in the circus growing up, I was a trampolinist, so it was really cool to read about that. I hadn't ever read about people jumping around and doing tricks, so that was fun. Yeah, I really love this. My next book's also gonna be an Olympic romance, but it's just so satisfying at the end. It's kind of like this. You get the Super Bowl at the end of both of these books, and it just feels so satisfying with the romance and with the whole trials and the sport going on. All right, and for my very last recommendation, like I said, it's another Olympic romance. So maybe when that time comes around again, you'll get to this, or just read it now. It's great. I loved it. To Let the Games Begin, by Rufaro Faith Mazarura. And yeah, similar to Head Over Heels, obviously, in a lot of ways. I loved like the training sessions. The one in here, his name's Zeke. He is a runner, so it's more about running rather than being a gymnast, but I love that. And I loved the main character, her name Olivia. She gets to come to the Olympics. She wanted to be a reporter for it, but something happens and she's not able to do that, so she's come to kind of just be a helper for everybody. And she ends up helping Zeke quite a bit. And they end up falling for each other. It's cool. It's kind of like a celebrity romance a bit. And yeah, I love seeing their struggles because you get both perspectives, and just them overcoming the thoughts that they have in their head. It was really empowering, and like I said, the ending, it felt so complete at the end, and I felt so much joy. I think having the Olympics going on, like at the time in the background, really helped because I was watching a lot of these stories happen in the real world. But yeah, I love this. I want more people to read it. All right, that's all we have for today. Thank you for coming on this journey of romance with me. If you have any favorites yourself, please post them in the comments. If there's any like you think I would like based on some of my recommendations, I'm so here for that. Obviously, you now know I like cooking show romances, game show romances, Olympic romances. So if you have anything specific to that, that's great. Yeah, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. and I'm hoping to put out more videos in the future. This is Big Top Books. Have a great rest of your day or night, and bye-bye. Oh, before I go, Floof wanted to say hi. Say hi to Floof. Do it.